way.
That's good. That's awesome. Let me ask you this: when it comes to like dads and older men and even brothers and guys on campus, what are some things they can be doing that are positive when it comes to this to be able to encourage women in this subject?
Well, as far as my dad goes, I remember one time I was looking at this picture. I was about 8, and I was holding my puppy, and I was when I saw the picture, it was probably about 8 years later. I was like 16, and I looked at it, and I was standing with him, and I said, "Geez, I was just an ugly child." And
Mm,
without missing a beat, my dad goes, "No, you weren't. You were beautiful." And that always stood
mm,
out in my mind. It was
mm,
just this moment, and I remember I said it so sure of myself, and he was just like, no, you weren't. You were always beautiful, and you always will be." And that was great because that was from my dad, and he's one of the most influential people in my life. Because he always supports me, and again, I could get done with like tennis practice, and I know I'm a sweaty, disgusting mess, and he'll still let me know that he thinks I'm beautiful. I mean, I think that's important to hear from your father. Uh, from guys on campus, it's important that they don't degrade women. And I think guys do it in ways that they might not even necessarily realize that they're doing it in their actions, and in things that they say to their teammates. I know because of the people that I hung out with in college, and I had a tendency to hang out with a lot of guys
mhm,
that they might not even be talking about me, but I'd hear
mhm,
them talk about other girls negatively. And, "Oh, dude, did you see what she was wearing or what she did at
mm,
this party?" And they were putting her down, but then in a sense, they were putting me down because I was also a woman. And I think that the guys need to realize that they need to respect girls, and the things that they say have a long lasting negative effect. Some of the guys that I remember that actually I thought were polite and appropriate were the guys that did hold the door open, and the gentlemen, and the guys that might compliment me, not because they wanted to date me, but just because they were genuinely nice guys, and they would compliment me on the outfit that I was wearing that day, or something I did in class or did outside on campus. But who also didn't talk negatively then about other girls, even if I was around.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and I just think that
Yeah.
men don't real like. I hate to say it, but I don't think that they realize that they do it because of their media and what they're getting from that faceless person.
Hmm. Do you think that they just don't even, I guess they don't even think about it, and they words just come out and they don't even realize how destructive some of those things could be that they say?
But yeah, I just
Mm-hmm.
think it's like that idea that women have that they have to be a certain size. It's this idea that men think that they have to treat women this way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's our mission to fight against that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, what can college campuses do about that? Is there anything that like they can do to help with this kind of thing? Because I know that that's related to domestic violence and the way
Hmm.
that a lot of especially when you look at some of the athletes and the way they treat their girlfriends and even
Yeah.
some of the female athletes, the way that they allow guys to treat them. I mean, would you have any advice for college campuses in general?
Well, campuses just need to be proactive. At Shuttern State, I know the RAs had to do programs every month, and they were geared towards certain things. And one of the programs that we had to do was for self images, and different things regarding that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but those programs then invite in other girls across the campus to come and to learn how to eat healthy, and they might do I remember we used to like decorate clothing, and you could bring your own clothing, so then it wasn't like, okay, we only have like small and mediums. You could bring whatever size fit you, and then decorate it in
Mm-hmm.
different things. But it's that
Mm-hmm.
that being proactive,
Yeah.
uh, and making sure that things don't happen. I also know uh, at Shattern they offered a lot of counseling for girls who might have been abused, or could, I mean, even be raped. I mean, it happens everywhere. And I think that Shattern realized that we do have this issue, and we're not above it. That we do have students that are here and that do struggle with it. And they allowed an avenue for those students, and that's what's important.
Absolutely. That's very cool. Well, what would you say the Bible has to say about this? I mean, can you think of any biblical passages or just any kind of overall concepts that speak to this issue of beauty and women?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Just yesterday, I have a friend. She still goes to Shattern, and every day she texts me a verse of the day. And yesterday, and I tweeted it. I was so excited. She texted me. It's from First Samuel's chapter 16, verse 7, and it
Uh-huh.
says, "God does not see the same way people see. People look at the outside of a person, but the Lord looks at the heart." And I just remember, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like the most perfect verse for pageants and for young women because
Hmm.
it's not about what's on the outside. It's
Absolutely.
about what's on the inside. And I've struggled with body image. I also struggle with people thinking that I'm intelligent. They automatically assume because I do pageants that I'm just this complete airhead. Because they
Hmm.
only look on what's the outside. I'm educated, but you don't know
Sure.
that until you get to see who I am on the inside. So
Uh-huh.
that verse is just, I just get excited.
That's awesome. That's one of my favorite verses as well. I'm glad you brought that up. That's huge. And guys struggle with that as well. I mean, we
Hmm.
compare ourselves to other guys. How much money have you made? We compare our looks. I mean, we do that as well. And so that's huge to know that your value. God looks at you on the inside. So that's huge. And really for a Christian, I think our value comes from who we are in Christ. Our
Hmm.
position with Christ.
Hmm.
And also Psalm 139, talks about how we're fearfully and wonderfully made. And so if God says that we're awesome and beautiful, then we need to accept it. But the problem is the media and our culture is so influenced by the media. The media doesn't tell you that. It says, you got to look a certain way, you got to have a certain amount of money, you got to do certain things. And that's such a conflict. It's such a hard struggle. I
Yeah.
think everyone, to some extent, struggles with that or has struggled with that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh,
cool.
yeah. And I think, you know, when God speaks, he whispers. And so you don't hear that over the noise of everything else in the media and that faceless person telling us. And so you have to listen very carefully. And I mean, yesterday Mary texted me that, and I don't know how, I assume she just picks verses. I know she reads from the Bible every day. And I just assume she picks a verse that she reads from. But for whatever reason, God sent that verse to her to send to me, and I needed to hear that, but I didn't realize that right away because he only whispered it. And I think that's important to remember, that sometimes the things that are important are the little things that might go overlooked. And where you have media on television and on magazines and on Facebook and everything else, it begins to clutter, and distract from what's really important.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's huge. Wow. Well, this is good. Well, as we wrap things up, I mean, do you have any other advice that you would give to girls or women, or just anything else you'd like to share when it comes to this subject?
I always say that you're your biggest advocate. Um, Doing pageants, people always had their opinions. People always
Hmm.
told me, and they still do tell me what I should wear and how I should act. And a lot of times I believe that people do have what they think is my best interest in mind.